Curtis Calhoun here with MMA News, and my next guest picked up another massive win this past weekend at UFC London. It's Jonny Parsons joining me today. How's it going, Jonny?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great again, man. Thanks again for the time. Really do appreciate it. First things first, man. A few days removed from the fight, obviously a big win in your UFC debut. Obviously, a lot to get to there, but just kind of give me your first thoughts on your performance and how the fight played out.
Um, yeah, man, it was awesome. You know, fight kind of played out how I thought it was going to play out. There was definitely some hectic moments. Where I rocked him, where I wish I would have stayed a little more calm, but I feel like despite not really sleeping for a week, I feel like I did pretty well.
I was about to ask you about that. Like, did the time difference screw up with your head at all? Because I know you mentioned in the post-fight press conference that you hadn't slept all week and all that. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, was the time difference like kind of a factor during fight week?
I definitely underestimated the toll it would take, and it wasn't. I felt good at the beginning of the week, but then like as every day went by, it like wore more and more down on me. I feel like the weight cut was a little harder than it needed to be, just because I felt a little mentally drained. Um, but uh, but yeah, but a fight's a fight. You can't always, in life, you can't always choose the circumstances in which you have to fight, and um, sometimes, on your worst day, you still gotta do your job.
And you got the finish right at the end of round two. Were you surprised that the referee stepped in like right at the buzzer, or were you expecting another round? Or talk to me a little bit about that finishing sequence.
I was ready to go another round, but I definitely was, relieved when it was stopped, just because, like I said earlier, I didn't stay too calm. Different times I rocked him and I got a little excited, and I feel like, it was a little bit of that like holding your breath type of moment, like oh, like it's happening. You know what I mean? So like I felt like you know, I was definitely happy that he stopped it, just because that was kind of like it was a long sequence of that, like, him being rocked and then me trying to finish him, and it was just yeah, it was just getting dragged out a little bit. So I was happy that it stopped. I was ready to go another round, but I definitely was like it started to wear on me. Just those hectic moments, where we were going back and forth, and like I knew I had to finish it, and yeah, dude, it was a crazy experience. I almost can't put it into words.
And you entered this fight on, almost a 2-year layoff since your win on Dana White's Contender Series. Obviously, this was a UFC debut that you were waiting a long time for. You get that win at the end. I mean, how glorifying was that for you after, everything you've been through with injuries and all that to get a win in your UFC debut?
Yeah, man, it's something that as crazy and as different as it felt that I was when I was in there. It also, it played out how I expected. You know, man, it's such a weird feeling of like it being such a foreign feeling, but very comfortable at the same time. Like it's hard to explain it. Like it was very different being in that octagon. You know what I mean? Being in that arena, but at the same time, I felt very comfortable in there.
And talk to me a little bit about the layoff specifically. What did you learn about yourself, having to deal with all those injuries and then coming back and getting that debut win? Like, talk to me a little bit about, kind of the process that led to you getting a win this past weekend.
It's not the first time in my career that I came from a long layoff. So and because I've dealt with that before, and kind of knew that even after a long break, like I knew I could step into the cage and perform regardless. I'm not a real big believer in ring rust. I definitely think like time in the cage, is invaluable experience that you can't get anywhere else. But I think it's also kind of like riding a bike. You don't ever lose it.
And I saw that you mentioned during the post-fight press conference, how much being a coach means to you, right? Like you've done a lot of coaching, especially over the last couple of years, a lot of classes too. Talk to me a little bit about that. Like, do you feel like coaching and coaching other fighters and cornering has almost kind of made you a better fighter, and especially with the mindset and everything that comes with it?
Yeah, definitely. I think it adds so much to the experience. I've been cornering guys in the amateur scene, since 2014, and it's like I've made that walk. It's not always been my walk, but I've made that walk so many times. Like I've experienced so many fight weeks, so many like weigh-ins, so many fight days. You know what I mean? So I definitely feel like that adds to the experience. Um, and also just as a coach, being able to like break down techniques and analyze them, and that's something that's really helped me a lot during training, because a lot of times like the same techniques I might be teaching during the week to my students will be the same techniques that like I'll use in my sparring and things like that. So it kind of helps like sometimes I'm teaching something that like you don't want your class to be boring. So sometimes I'm pulling out like old techniques and different things that maybe I'm not actively using. But after a week of teaching it to my students, I'll be like, oh, I'm going to use this in sparring. And then, it's nice to know like, okay, well, what I'm teaching them works.
And do you kind of see that as like, obviously, you have a lot more to do in your fighting career, but like thinking long term, could you see that like being a long term passion of yours, like continuing to coach and cornering and all that?
Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely like, when I was younger, the dream was, oh, I'm going to be in the UFC someday, and now the dream is like, man, one day, I want to own my own gym. And to kind of put something in perspective, I cornered I cornered at least one person every month since I won Contender Series to about May this year.
Hmm.
So it's like, man, I love coaching. I love helping people, and like whether they want to fight to someday be a professional, or they're just fighting to grow as a person. Like I love being able to help people go through those experiences, and I feel like it makes you a better person. And then also the guys you fight with, you grow a closer bond with those people, and it's a type of bond that like you can't really get anywhere else. You know, there's really nothing like it. As a coach, and then even all the guys I coach and that have like fought together on the same cards, like over the past year and a half, they have grown into like the bestest of friends. So to kind of see that brotherhood and see like everyone's always pushing each other, everyone has each other's backs. They keep each other accountable when it comes to training. So it's like it makes my job as a coach easier too, because they're on top of it. They help each other. They help me help them. So it's so great.
And what's your post-fight routine usually like? Like some guys like to get right back in the gym after a win, or they like to take a few days off. I guess what's kind of your routine? Like, do you kind of focus more on recovery, or are you just getting right back in there?
No, I'm definitely gonna focus on recovery this week, and then you know by next week I'll be grappling and stuff, and trying to get back on the strength and conditioning, and especially after coming off that layoff, I'm healthy, so I want to keep the momentum going, and and keep working. I don't know if I'll ever drop down to lightweight, but I definitely want to try myself as a little bit of a lighter welterweight. I don't need to. I don't need a six pack to make welterweight, but I definitely plan on getting a little bit more leaner. And in the past I've kind of blown up after fights, because as an amateur I fought 147s at Muay Thai, and then I even fought lightweight as an amateur in MMA, things like that. And I feel like over the years, I would just get bigger and bigger after each fight. So eventually, I'm fighting at 85 and 170 just because like I just wanted to fight and I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to have to wait to make weight.
Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, you're healthy, obviously coming off of that long layoff. What's kind of your initial timeline for return right now? Are you trying to get on one of those September cards, maybe October? What's kind of like the initial plan as of right now?
Um, really, in a perfect world, like I feel pretty healthy. We'll see how I feel when I get back in the gym next week. Um, but in a perfect scenario, I'd love to go fight in Abu Dhabi.
Mm, very cool, man. Well, once again, I really do appreciate the time. Before we wrap things up here, I'll give you the final word to shout out your team, sponsors you're working with, all that good stuff. I'll give you the final word.
Yeah, I want to thank especially thank all the staff and all the coaches at the Performance Institute. I feel like without their support, I wouldn't have made it to the fight. And I want to thank my team at Syndicate MMA and One Kicks Gym for helping me get ready for this fight. Champ X Meals, Insta Cryo, thank you to them for let me use their infrared sauna, and they offer a bunch of services, cryo and things like that. So thank them. Yeah, my family, everybody, man, everybody.
Absolutely. Well, Jonny, it was great to meet you. Great to chat with you. I have a feeling this will be the first of a few different conversations we'll have in the next year or so. All the best with these next few weeks. Congrats again on the win, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Curtis.